My parents rejected me when I chose a blue-collar life, but now they want back in. Am I wrong for refusing to help? Growing up in a wealthy Chicago suburb, with a father who is a well-known professor at Northwestern University and a mother who is the stereotypical faculty wife, I have always been the challenging twin. Early on, I discovered that I was supposed to take a very certain route. The ideal daughter, my twin sister, accepted everything our parents desired. She epitomizes all of our parents' dreams, married a wealthy lawyer, and lives in a lovely home in Lincoln Park. From my earliest recollections, our house resembled a meticulously organized museum, with each item having its own location. While my mother's realm was the spotless living room where she invited faculty spouses for afternoon tea, my father's study was crammed with leather-bound volumes and academic honors. My sister and I were expected to be living examples of their success, even as kids, well-groomed, well-behaved, and constantly successful. Early on, the difference between us became apparent. My sister excelled at charm school and piano recitals, but I liked to lose myself in science fiction books and secretly watch motorcycle races on TV. Our mother's constant correction was the soundtrack to our lives. Sit up straight, sweetheart. Don't cross your legs, cross your ankles. Every instruction was given with a smile that never quite made it to her eyes. Do try to smile more. The pressure definitely increased in high school. My sister became a member of every relevant club, including the debate team, student government, and Young Republicans. Despite being compelled to do so, I didn't want to. During a particularly memorable student council meeting, I proposed setting up a fundraiser for a nearby motorcycle maintenance training program for at-risk teenagers. The terrified expression on my mother's face when she learned about it plagued me for weeks. The impact of our father was not limited to our household. As a renowned economics professor at Northwestern, he was well known in Chicago's intellectual and corporate circles. These relationships served as the foundation for our futures and were more than social capital. Through his network, every summer internship, college application, and employment opportunity was meticulously planned. I can still clearly recall the day he declared that he had gotten me accepted into Northwestern's economics program. I was shoving the remnants of my mother's expertly presented roast beef around in our formal dining room. He said, without raising his gaze from his wine glass, "It's all arranged. Professor Richardson owes me a favor. You'll start in the fall." From the other side of the table, my sister, who was already in her second year of business administration, smiled. I could feel the walls closing in, yet I was at a loss for words. My life has always gone like that. I follow the meticulously prepared tracks, even if my inner voice begs for a different course, because it's what responsible young ladies do. I earned my MBA. I chose to work in corporate strategy at one of the best companies in Chicago because it was a fantastic opportunity. My entire career has been a masterclass in following expectations rather than pursuing my own desires. My everyday schedule was the ideal representation of the life I was supposed to aspire to. My wake-up time was 5:30 a.m. My mother picked my high-rise apartment on Michigan Avenue, since it's a popular place for young, successful professionals to dwell. During required shopping trips with my mother and sister, I wore designer suits that were more expensive than other people's monthly rent. My mother constantly added, "Appearance is everything in the business world, dear," suggesting a more conservative heel height or changing my collar. People who are living examples of what my parents want me to be are all around me at work. On most days, I hardly notice the breathtaking view of Lake Michigan from my 47th floor corner office. Rather, I meet for hours on end with people who seem to actually care about quarterly estimates and shareholder value, discussing market strategies and profit margins with a passion I can't seem to summon. They enthuse about their vacation houses in Lake Forest, their children's private schools, and their memberships at country clubs. In an effort to keep us close, our mother insists that my sister come to lunch with me every Wednesday. Perfectly groomed and typically fresh from a board meeting at one of her numerous charitable organizations, she comes at precisely 12:30. Over expensive salads at the trendy restaurant below, she tells me about her picture-perfect life, including her husband's recent high-profile case, their plans to buy a second house in Aspen, and the prestigious daycare where their child is already on the wait list. She gently wiped her lips with a handkerchief last week and advised me, "You should join the junior league. Mother thinks it would be good for your social connections. Besides, You need to start thinking about marriage. All the best eligible men are involved in charity work. I instinctively agreed, as I've come to do when my family offers advice on how to live my life. In all honesty, this world of manufactured perfection is smothering me. While my colleagues enthusiastically debate market penetration tactics and hostile takeovers in meetings, I can't help but stare at the construction workers in the building across the street. They're making something substantial, doing something real. I can be so envious of them at times that it hurts. I found myself scribbling motorcycle ideas in the margins of my notes during a particularly dull budget discussion last month. Upon noticing, my direct report looked at me with anxiety. I promptly turned to a blank page and made myself concentrate on the supply chain efficiency optimization PowerPoint presentation. I heard him express concern to another manager later that day over my dedication to the company's mission. Weekends are the worst. While my sister and her husband go to country club parties and charity galas, I pretend that I'm working late. In reality, I'm stuck driving through the city's industrial areas, drawn to the unadulterated, authentic elements of Chicago that they deny exist. I observe those who make things with their hands and appear to truly like what they do, such as welders at their shops, artists in their studios, and mechanics working on automobiles. Everything changed last night. My BMW, my father's thoughtfully selected graduation present, began to make a menacing grinding sound. After yet another heartbreaking day of acting as though I cared about market forecasts, I was in the wrong part of town, as my mother used to say, but I had to stop or risk getting stuck. Just before closing time, I stopped into a nearby auto repair shop as I saw the check engine light flash mockingly. I met Jake at that time. With a welding torch in hand, Jake was the final guy left working, hunched over a handmade motorbike frame. He was authentic. Work boots, faded trousers, and hands that demonstrated he truly made a living. In contrast to the polished business people my parents are constantly attempting to pair me with. He looked up and grinned, but it wasn't the staged smile I see at business events. It was sincere. It extended to his eyes. "Timing belt's about to go," he observed, having listened to my engine for less than a minute. "I can fix it now if you want to wait." Simple competence, without any corporate language or ulterior motives. Even though I could hear my mother's disapproving voice in my mind about being in that neighborhood after dark, I found myself nodding. We chatted while he worked. Jake shared with me his experiences progressing from simple building to more complex metal work, his aspirations to start his own custom fabrication business, and his passion for creating things by hand. He showed me the motorcycle he was restoring, which fused contemporary engineering with vintage design. The enthusiasm in his voice as he described the technical specifics made my practice presentations about market expansion strategies seem insignificant in comparison. He fixed my car and then asked, "Want to see something cool?" He showed me a part of the business with a number of finished projects. Every piece was distinct, the ideal fusion of creativity and utility. As I ran my fingers over the beautiful curves of the metal, I felt more a part of actual production than I ever had after years of moving papers in my corner office. We ended up sipping coffee from the shop's antiquated vending machine and spoke until long after midnight. Jake told me about his upbringing with a single mother who was a nurse, his time at community college studying his craft, and the joy he gets from making something enduring by hand. I started talking more about my life, including the oppressive expectations, the constant comparison to my sister, and the increasing sense that I was living someone else's fantasy. "You know," he began slowly, "metal's interesting. People think it's rigid, unchangeable. But with the right heat and pressure, it can become anything. Sometimes the most beautiful pieces come from metal that's been stressed and reformed." I did not fail to notice the metaphor. I've been seeing Jake practically every day since that night, after work in the shop. He has been teaching me the fundamentals of welding. The process itself is immensely fulfilling. The concentration needed, the observable outcomes, the way two disparate parts are permanently fused together. In contrast, nothing feels real in the fleeting realm of business strategy. Jake took me on my first motorbike ride around Lake Michigan last weekend. There were no conference calls, shareholder expectations, or family pressures. Just the wind, the road, and the sensation of being fully alive. The freedom was exhilarating. In Wisconsin, we made a stop at a tiny diner, the kind of establishment my mother would never enter. It was the best coffee I've ever had, better than at any of Chicago's best eateries. Jake is taking me to meet his mother tomorrow. Despite being retired, she continues to volunteer at the nearby hospital. He speaks about her with such sincere love and respect, instead of the required awe I give my parents at Sunday dinners. I've never been more anxious before a corporate presentation than I am now. I know what's coming. My folks will need to hear about Jake soon. My mother will weep, my father will threaten to cut me off, and my sister will be appalled. However, for the first time in my life, I'm prepared to make my own decisions. I feel like I'm finally becoming the person I was destined to be, not the person my parents wanted me to be. When Jake smiles at me, I feel more alive than ever, yet I'm also scared. Perhaps having the guts to live genuinely is what true success looks like, rather than having a prominent location or corner office. 3 months have passed since my previous post, and a lot has changed. When I eventually told my parents about Jake, it was a complete disaster, worse than I could have imagined. I decided to tell them during our required Sunday meal. When I revealed that Jake was a welder, my father's face went a shade of crimson I had never seen before. My mother let her sterling silver fork fall to the exquisite china, clattering like a gunshot. The boom reverberated across our suddenly quiet dining room. My father spat the phrase "a welder" as if it were toxic. After everything we've invested in you? After all the connections I've built? For about 20 minutes, he launched into a tirade about family reputation and social status. My mother would alternate between giving me looks of complete betrayal and wiping her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief. At first, my sister, who was there with her lawyer husband, genuinely chuckled, assuming it was a joke. As she realized I was genuine, her face took on an expression of sheer fear. She growled from the other side of the table. "You can't be serious. What about Richard from the golf club? His family's been asking about you." The situation became heated when I told them I was thinking of quitting my corporate position to assist Jake in launching his custom fabrication company. My father got to his feet so suddenly that his chair toppled over. "You are no longer welcome in this family if you pursue this absurd fantasy," he said, his voice shaking with anger. The peace that swept over me at hearing it was unexpected, but I had anticipated the threat. The formal dining room, my sister's expensive outfit, my mother's exquisitely placed flowers, the oil paintings, and the crystal chandelier all seemed useless to me anymore. "Then I guess this is goodbye," I said and got to my feet. Despite my mother's theatrical gasp, I kept gathering my belongings. My sister followed me into the foyer as I made my way to the door. She cautioned, "You're making a huge mistake. You're throwing away everything we were raised to be." "No," I said, getting stronger with every step. "I'm finally becoming who I really am." There have been many developments over the last 3 months. To the surprise of my coworkers, I left my corporate job. An emergency board meeting was called in response to my resignation letter, and my former employer continues to send me letters every week urging me to come back. Jake and I have been working tirelessly to launch our own company. In an industrial neighborhood, we discovered the ideal location. Although it needs some maintenance, there is a lot of potential, and the rent is fair. My business experience has proven surprisingly helpful in setting up our organization, and Jake's underwater welding talent has already drawn several significant clients. Jake's mother has provided the most surprising assistance. Warm, accepting, and truly interested in who I am rather than what she believes I should be, she is everything my mother is not. She arrived with homemade sandwiches and old trousers to assist us with painting the office area of our new shop. Splattered with paint, when she embraced me, I had never felt more at home, not even in my parents' estate. Through her husband's legal practice, my sister issued me a formal letter last week, requesting that I change my ways and rejoin the family. She reminded us of our family's reputation in Chicago society and provided a comprehensive list of available corporate jobs and eligible bachelors. I lit the new wood stove at our workshop using the letter. Finding a community I was unaware of has been the most unexpected development. We have been greeted warmly by our neighbors in the industrial area. We get coffee in the mornings from the car repair shop next door, and the local artist collective has already commissioned a number of custom metal works for their next show. Next month, Jake and I will tie the knot. There won't be a country club reception, a beautiful gown, or the society wedding my parents have been planning for me since I was born. Instead, we're holding a modest ceremony in the workshop, surrounded by the things we've created together and the individuals who genuinely support us. The invitation was sent back unopened by my parents. Another legal letter from my sister threatened to declare me mentally incompetent. However, I can tell I've made the correct decision when I watch Jake work, witness his commitment to his trade, and experience the joy of creating something tangible. I saw my reflection on a polished metal piece this morning while assisting Jake with a challenging welding project. Even though I hardly recognized my self-work boots, jeans, and hair pulled back, I felt more attractive and more like myself than ever before. Even if my family no longer approves of me, I've gained authenticity, which is far more valuable. In my new life, every burn from hot metal, every callus on my hands, and every late-night business brainstorming session are all medals of glory. After 6 months of marriage, Jake and I have experienced some unexpected changes in our lives. The most exciting news is that Jake's underwater welding certification has opened up contracts we never thought were feasible. Due in large part to Jake's specialist abilities being in great demand for marine infrastructure projects, our tiny business has grown quicker than we could have imagined. We secured a significant underwater repair contract with the Chicago Port Authority last month. I recognize the irony. The same blue-collar jobs that my parents mocked now generate more money each year than my previous corporate job did. Our custom fabrication business is flourishing with more specialized tasks, and Jake's salary has risen significantly. However, success has presented unforeseen difficulties. Surprisingly, word of our expanding company made its way to my former corporate circles. My old coworkers in Chicago's industrial area have begun contacting me, some with sincere congratulations, others with barely concealed interest in our small business. My former boss called last week to propose a consultancy arrangement. I declined courteously. Our appearance in a local business publication was the biggest step forward. The article highlighted our special blend of technical know-how and business savvy, with a focus on successful career transitions. For the first time in months, my sister texted me the morning it was released. The article was read by me. "Congratulations, I guess," she wrote. "Jake's mother is no longer only his. She's become the mother-in-law I've always hoped I had. She frequently stops by the shop with handmade food and a sincere interest in what we do. She recently assisted us in setting up a training program for aspiring welders, a cause close to her heart after witnessing the transformative power of welding on her son's life. Our workshop has developed into a gathering place for the neighborhood. In addition to hiring 3 local apprentice welders, we have begun providing weekend workshops for those with an interest in metalworking. We have worked with a number of local artists on public art projects, and the owner of the car repair company next door sends his younger mechanics to learn from Jake. The work's physical demands have altered me in unexpected ways. Useful work clothes have taken the place of my luxury suits, which are still hanging unworn at the back of our wardrobe. I have developed muscles I never knew existed, and my hands are now calloused. There are more than just physical improvements, though. I now carry myself with a confidence that comes from doing something real rather than merely pushing papers. An unusual encounter occurred last week at our workshop. I was overseeing a delivery when a beautiful Mercedes arrived. My sister's husband came out, looking totally out of place in his fitted suit. His legal firm wants to hire us to do some underwater inspections on their marina properties. Therefore, he brought a business proposal. It was an uncomfortable but illuminating conversation. He acknowledged that everyone was surprised by our achievement. He hesitated before departing, saying, "Your sister follows your business in the news, but your father still won't talk about it." Then he looked at me and added, "You seem different, happier." My mother would be horrified by the rhythm that has been established in our home life. We decided to put practicality ahead of elegance and purchased a modest home in a developing neighborhood. Our furniture is a combination of items we welded ourselves and old treasures. Although the garden isn't as well kept as my parents' estate, it is thriving with herbs and vegetables that we utilize on a daily basis. The wedding pictures, which were taken by a local artist who captured the genuine moments rather than by a society photographer, arrived lately. One shows Jake and I in safety gear, totally focused on the task at hand, as he teaches me how to weld an ornamental arch for the ceremony. Another depicts us dancing in the workshop with our chosen family and our creations. As I look at them, I see that we have created something that, in spite of their wealth, my parents never had: true happiness. We've begun discussing starting a family, which raises more questions. I consider the principles we wish to impart, the value of creating, pursuing your own path, engaging success based on fulfillment rather than prestige. My own parents have no idea that they could ever have grandkids, and Jake's mother breaks down whenever we bring up the subject. I found out yesterday that our workshop had received an invitation to my sister's forthcoming charity event. The note in the envelope wasn't what I expected, but it was addressed in her well-known handwriting. "I miss you," she sent. I haven't replied yet, but I said maybe we could talk. A part of me understands that I can never return to my former self, but another part of me wants to make amends. Our most recent endeavor is a massive public artwork for the city that consists of several metal sculptures that symbolize change. As I watch Jake work on it, transforming metal into flowing shapes that seem to defy their material nature, I consider how much we've changed together. Me, from a corporate puppet to someone who at last feels real, and him, from a talented craftsman to a prosperous business owner. The silent moment when we close up the workshop is the highlight of the day. Looking at what we've created, both the actual company and our life together, makes me feel accomplished in a way that no corporate success ever did. Even though my hands are rough today and my clothes smell like metal and honest labor, my heart is fuller than it was in my past existence. Life tends to come full circle. I hadn't seen my parents in more than a year until they unexpectedly dropped by our studio yesterday. They appeared smaller in some way. A Northwestern scandal had cost them dearly. Due to claims of harassment, my father, who was once a proud professor, was forced to leave. The very thing they valued above all else, their social standing, had fallen apart. My mother's fancy shoes were totally out of place on the shop floor, and they stood clumsily in our workspace. Their superbly designed clothing stood out sharply against the background of our welding tools and ongoing projects. First to speak, my father's voice lacked the authority it usually possessed. In between my mother's hardly contained cries, the story poured out. "We need your help." My sister's husband, the accomplished lawyer they had always commended, refused to assist until they paid his entire legal bill. After the scandal surfaced, my sister sided with her husband. When they were unable to pay his rates, they were ordered to vacate the guest home at my sister's house, where they had been residing. My mother remarked sourly, "Your sister believes it will harm her reputation." The irony of what she said didn't escape my notice. After everything we did for her, I recalled all the times they had cautioned me that picking Jake would harm the family's reputation. My father surveyed our studio, his gaze resting on the honors we had just received for our unique workmanship. The wall was framed with an article from the local newspaper about our success. From corporate to creative, local welding business makes waves. He said the words with difficulty. "We thought perhaps we could stay with you for a while." Behind me, I sensed Jake's steady, encouraging presence. As usual, he quit his work but didn't get involved, so I was free to manage my family the way I wanted. That small gesture of respect and trust said a lot about our relationship. When I truly looked at my parents, I realized what they were no longer able to conceal. The flawless facade was crumbling, and the fine clothing was a little shabby. They were here because they had nowhere else to go, not because they had accepted me or my decisions. "No," I answered in a firm voice. "You can't stay with us." The phrase released something I had been holding on to for too long, like a key turning in a lock. "You threw me out of the family when I chose this life. You can't come back now just because you need something." My mom's face fell flat. She begged, "But we're your parents." A hint of my father's former authority emerged as his face darkened. "After everything we've done for you." I cut in. "That's exactly the problem. Everything you did was to control me, to make me fit your image of success. When I found my own way, you disowned me. And now that my way has proved successful, you want back in." I pointed to our workshop. "See all this? The business you thought was beneath you? It's thriving. The husband you rejected? He's more successful than most of your country club friends. The life you said would embarrass the family? It's featured in business magazines." "But that's different," countered my father. "We can see now that you've made something of yourself." "No," I interrupted him once more. "That's not different at all. You still don't get it. I didn't need to prove anything. My worth isn't measured by income or social status. I'm happy because I'm finally living authentically, not because we're successful." After a while, they departed, my father stiff with rage and my mother in tears. As we saw their fancy car drive out, Jake gave me a hug. Simply, "You okay?" he inquired. I was more than fine. I had freedom. As we shut down the shop later that night, I reflected on the path that had led me here. The corporate job I had detested, the familial pressure I had fled, the love I had discovered, and the company we had established. I had been moving toward myself with each step I took away from my parents' expectations. While examining our most recent project, a sophisticated metal sculpture that the city had commissioned, I came to a surprising realization. Life occasionally requires extreme heat and pressure to create something beautiful, much like the metal we deal with. That heat had been my parents' rejection, and I had grown stronger and more authentic as a result. They failed to realize that they were offering me a cage by attempting to reintegrate me into their world, regardless of how gilded. My home is now here, surrounded by steel and sparks, with a partner who loves me for who I am rather than what he wants me to be. I appreciate the Reddit community's support during this journey. Your advice and support kept me going when I was having self-doubt. I'm thankful for this platform that allows me to share my story, because sometimes the most difficult decisions are the best ones. To everyone who must make similar decisions, remain loyal to who you are. Although the journey may be more difficult, the end result is worthwhile.